What's going on, everybody? It's your boy BJ, the DJ. You are now tuned into the rewrap. This is episode 8. Before we get started, if you haven't already, please make sure you hit that subscribe button. The rewrap is available on all major streaming platforms. And if you haven't already, please make sure you check in with them guys at Over the Top with Chad and Tony. You can catch me on there as a recurring guest talking about movies and nostalgic wrestling. Let's get into it. Episode 8. Now, what I want to do is backtrack a few episodes where I made the statement that 3-6 Mafia was the greatest rap group of all time. I will die on that hill, right? But if ever there was a group that was even close to being an equal, it would have to be Bone Thugs and Harmony. Now, the reasons I didn't put Bone Thugs and Harmony in the conversation was basically because I wanted to exclude them because I knew I was going to do an episode based on them, right? So I didn't I didn't want to give it away. I was hoping someone would catch it and someone would mention it, but they didn't. So the reason I don't put Bone Thugs and Harmony above 3-6 Mafia, let me just get this out of the way right quick, is the same reasons I put 3-6 Mafia on that pedestal, right? The consistency and longevity. Now, I know they did a versus, and I know 9 times out of 10 people are going to say that Bone lost to 3-6 Mafia. However, I do feel like Bone Thugs and Harmony had bigger singles than 3-6 Mafia did. Let me say that again. I do feel like Bone Thugs and Harmony had bigger singles than 3-6 Mafia did. And I can pull up 5 right now that I feel like were bigger than anything that 3-6 Mafia did. In the versus world that they were in, 3-6 Mafia's music just resonated better. They had consistent hits, right? Bone got to a point where no matter what they pulled out, it wasn't going to match up with the songs that 3-6 Mafia was playing, right? But I would put First of the Month, I would put Crossroads, I would put Thug Love, and I would put Days of Our Lives, sorry. And I would put Days of Our Lives over most any song that 3-6 Mafia has ever put out. I feel like those singles were more impactful during the time in which they were released, right? Of course, Days of Our Lives was put on the Set It Off soundtrack, and it was the biggest song on that soundtrack, right? It actually is what helped sell that soundtrack. However, I feel like 3-6 Mafia was consistent way longer than Bone was. But again, not excluding what Bone contributed to hip hop, and I'm not completely ignoring what Bone has been able to do, right? I feel like personally, this is my personal take, right? I feel like Bone reached its peak in 1997. Once The Art of War came out, I feel like everything after that was just we're doing this because we have to type thing. Not that the songs weren't big in a sense, but nothing was bigger than the songs that were on Creeping on the Come Up, East 99, and Art of War, right? Bone burst on the scene in 1993 with an EP called Faces of Death, and at that time they were going by Bone Enterprises. Story would have it that they would get in touch with Eazy-E. They would play phone tag with Eazy. They would end up in a different city thinking Eazy was there. Eazy was actually in Cleveland looking for them. So there was mutual interest amongst the two groups for them to sign with Ruthless. They signed with Ruthless. They released Creeping on the Come Up, and the rest is history, right? Creeping on the Come Up gave us some really big songs as well. Thuggish Ruggish Bone was our first nationwide introduction to what Bone was capable of doing. And we also got the hit For the Love of Money featuring Eazy, which to me is one of the dopest songs ever created because it bridges the gap between two generations. You've got a hip hop pioneer like Eazy, and you've got this new supergroup called Bone Thugs and Harmony. So what I loved about it was that Bone did their usual rapping fast and harmonies, and Eazy came in with this slow flow that just complemented the song altogether. So after that, we would get the super smash album East 99 Eternal. East 99 Eternal is, to me, one of the top 10 best albums ever made in hip hop. I'll say it again, one of the top 10 best albums ever produced in hip hop, right? And I say that because every artist has that one album, or every group has that one album that is flawless, right? It's either a debut album or it's the next album up. It very seldom happens album 3, 4, 5, whatever. If you have a career long enough to where you get more than 3 albums. But East 99 Eternal was, to me, what really set Bone on fire. It starts out, it had 3 singles off that particular album. We got the super smash, again, Crossroads, still relevant to this day, right? Most people still listen to Crossroads on a regular basis. We got East 99 Eternal, which was the title track, and we got the first of the month, which to me was one of the most creative songs ever. My little 12, 13-year-old self sitting here singing this song, not knowing it was about welfare, right? But that's just what it was. I love the harmonies. I love the beats. I love the rhymes. I can't tell you how many times I tried to play and pause just to write down what I thought Bone was saying. And when the internet became a big thing, people were on the internet searching for Bone Thugs and Harmony's lyrics, and most of these lyric sites had no clue what they were saying, right? But their contributions to the game are unmatched, right? You could say that I don't necessarily know if you would say they're the innovators of the tongue twist style, because there were other people doing it. I know there was beef between them and 3-6 Mafia at one point. There was beef between the people in Chicago and Bone Thugs and Harmony at one point, because they were who originated the style, right? And everyone wants to stake claim in it. But they did it a little bit different, right? They were throwing the harmonies in. It was just different how Bone did it. And it really set them aside from a lot of rappers and a lot of groups. But again, East 99 to me is their best body of work as a group. Now, they would release a double album called The Art of War in 1997. And when I say this is where I feel like they reached their peak, it's not saying that they didn't put out anything of substance afterwards. It's just saying that, by this point, we've got Bone down to a 4-man group. Flesh is in and out of jail. You didn't have the same original group. Something was different, right? Artists at this point, they were doing solo projects. Crazy was doing something solo. Busy was doing something solo. Lazy was branching off doing something solo. Wish never did a solo album, which, I don't necessarily know why. Other than personally, I feel like he may have been the weakest link in the group. Doesn't mean that he didn't add value. It's just, if I'm looking at the lyricist from top to bottom, it's Crazy, Lazy, Busy, Flesh, and then Wish, if I'm being honest, right? The track I admire most on the Art of War is Thug Love, of course. Bone Thugs and Harmony are actually the only group to do a song with Biggie and Pac while they were alive, right? So I thought that was a pretty dope fact that I found when I was researching some stuff about Bone. After 97, there was a 3-year hiatus before they put together the BTNH Resurrection album. It went platinum, but to me, there was nothing really memorable on that album, to talk about, right? 2 years after that, we would get Thug World Order. 2006, 4 years after that, we'd get Thug Stories. And then in 2007, after their deal with Ruthless was over, they released Thug Stories on Koch. But after their deal with Ruthless was, I guess, completed in 2002, I know there was some contract dispute there that kind of held them hostage to Ruthless. But after the independent release in 2006, they would sign with Full Surface and Interscope to produce what I feel like is one of the most underrated Bone albums ever, and that's Strength and Loyalty. By then, though, they were down to a 3-man group with just Crazy, Lazy, and Wish. But the production that Swiss Beats had on here, mixed with Bone's flow, man, there's some songs on here that I really, really enjoy, like Wind Blow, 9mm. Like, these are songs that you get the classic Bone style, but you get a nice new little twist with it, with the fresh production, right? Because up until this point, DJ Unique was handling the majority of their production. And then after that, all 5 would come back together in 2010. Here we are 3 years after for Unify, The World's Enemy. And this is another one that I feel like was really dope. When you listen to the songs that's got all 5 Bone members on it, you remember why you fell in love with Bone. You remember what they did different. You remember what they brought to the table. We would get a couple more releases after this. We get the Art of War, World War II, World War III. Sorry, I don't know why they decided to reuse that title. And then in 2017, we get one called New Waves. Didn't really pay any attention to this when it came out. Like I said, 97 to me was when Bone really, really hit their stride. And for whatever reason, maybe it was the success of the solo projects that were coming out, because Busy's album was dope. I think it went gold. Crazy had a couple gold records as well. And I think Crazy had the longest successful solo career. He would go on to do big things with songs like "Riding with Chameleonaire." He would also get on the Lil Jon joint where they're in the club, right? Which was cool because he's in the club standing there. And this is when you knew the beef with 3 6 Mafia was over. He's standing in the club after it pans from 3 6 Mafia right over to Crazy. I thought that was a really dope shot, right? But yeah, I mean, but in between time, like they would go on to successfully launch a label, right? Mo Thug Records was their label. They were putting out projects on there with their Mo Thug, the Mo Thug imprint. Ghetto Cowboy is probably the most famous Mo Thug song, and it's a cool song. I actually covered it in my top 5 songs with stories, right? I covered it in there. All in all, though, like Bone's contributions were huge, right? I mean, their album sold ridiculous numbers. Let's see, Creeping on a Come Up. I lost my place here. Creeping on a Come Up was 4 times platinum, and it was considered an EP, right? But again, it had 2 big singles on it. And then, like I said, East 99 Eternal is 4 times platinum. But for me, I feel like that number is a little low. By now, I feel like that thing is probably pushing 6, possibly 7, right? Art of War being a double album went 4 times platinum. And they go platinum with BTNH Resurrection. After that, not much activity other than Strength and Loyalty, right? If you haven't heard the Strength and Loyalty album, I encourage you to go listen to it. To me, it's one of the most underappreciated, right? Shout out Tony Delano for doing the artwork. He was doing a lot of artwork for local guys at the time. And I remember him telling us a story about how he was homies with Bone and that he was getting the Bone cover. Really dope shot of them in Cleveland, the Cleveland Indians Ball Stadium. Pretty dope shot there, man. So the inside booklet and the packet on that, the press kit on that was really dope. So again, shout out Delano for that. It was really cool to see all that come together. Again, Bone's impact, man, like they were very innovative in what they did, very intentional. I feel like, Bone is often overlooked, and it goes back to what I said. Had they had the longevity and were able to consistently keep everyone together, I think Bone would have probably been up on that number 1 spot for me personally. I love 3 6 Mafia. To me, like I said, they're the greatest group of all time, in my opinion. But Bone is right there with them. And the only thing that keeps Bone from probably taking over that spot is just the fact that after 3 albums, it just wasn't the same dynamic, right? I'm again, huge Bone fan. I'm probably about as big a Bone fan as I am a 3 6 Mafia, but I had to stay with the home team on that. And I excluded them from when my synopsis, when I was presenting it, just because of the region that I was talking about. I was talking about Memphis and the South. So that's why I mentioned, your Outkast, your UGKs and stuff like that. So, again, all of them would go on to have somewhat successful careers except Wish. For the B side of this particular episode, I am going to talk about my favorite solo project from the Bone members, and I'll get into that here in just a little bit. Again, not excluding what Bone has contributed. Bone definitely came in at a time when hip hop needed something fresh, and they provided that, right? They really put the Midwest on the map, brought something different and dynamic to the game, and really took the world by storm. And I still to this day don't know what they're talking about half the time, even if I look up the lyrics. So, that's what it is. That's what I got. This is Bone Thugs and Harmony. Wanted to make sure they got their just due because they deserve it. Great group, provided us great content, great music, and that's it. So, that's it. This has been it's been the rewrap. PJ the DJ. Catch you on the B side.
Shaking the 8 off, homie, it paid off, homie, it paid off.